have the money, and I said, we need money to kind of make some enhancements to our building. The feedback that I've gotten from our staff and our students is like, our building is great, our building is fantastic, but since we kind of moved into the new building, we didn't have kind of like that homey feeling. It kind of felt more like maybe like a business white collar office than it did like a school. And I always go back to what Mr. Scarpino says, like, it's a school, it's supposed to be fun. And so we wanted to like make our school feel like homey. We wanted to make it feel fun. And there are so many great things that happen in our buildings all of the time. Like, we want to highlight that, not just with our kids, but with our staff too. Like, it's our responsibility to capture moments that kids enjoy and let them see like how special they are. Like, we care about you, we believe in you, we trust in you. Like, this is your building, we want you to feel at home. And so like, how do we do that at home? With like pictures. And just having that sense of belonging. So this is kind of like the first project that we did. So I'm going to take you kind of through just a group of projects that we did. So the cool part about all of like essentially the picture projects is that these were all pictures taken by our student body, whether it was our yearbook class or our new digital photography class. These are all just files that we had, and Ms. Durkins, who is our digital photography teacher and our yearbook teacher and advisor, she has ran with a ton of these ideas. So what we have throughout scattered, mostly through the first level, are just picture collages, and it's just pictures of kids enjoying themselves in school activities. It's in them in the student section. It's Devin Reese after he scored 1,000 points. It's our kids in Miss Milton's class who are serving hot chocolate. It's just a way for a kid to come into the building and be like, I belong here, like I have this great sense of like Streetsboro High School. So that was the first project. The second project we did was the door and window decals, which most of you have probably seen when you've come in. We've had them up since April. I think they look great. Again, it's just another way of kind of like a little wow factor for the building that we've gotten some positive feedback on, just showing that we're proud of you. Like, we want this to be a great place for you. Next thing we talked to, that Mr. Scarpino alluded to, academic wall of honor. I stole this idea when I was at the wrestling district tournament in Norwalk High School, and they had this. I'm like, this is awesome. So on the left over here, any kid that meets a certain criteria as far as SAT scores are concerned, we put your name up there for you to see. On the far right is our list of AP scholars. So if you meet certain criteria as far as your AP coursework is concerned, you're put up there. Any student who's in National Honor Society from the last 2 years, they are up there. And in the middle, what our plan is, now the first quarter is done, is we are going to essentially highlight any kid in the building who has a 3.0 GPA or above for the first quarter, just so they can see their name up there, just so they can see like, hey, like, we are proud of you. And the goal is not only to highlight those kids, but it's for those kids who might be, you know, like at the 2.5, 2.6 mark, like, hey, like, I want to be up there, like, I want to see my name up there. What can I do? Like, a lot of it is just kind of like efforts. The more effort and the hard work you put in, like, we want to reward you for that hard work and for that effort. Next thing, senior parking spots, like, awesome. Again, stole this idea from a couple of places, like seeing the creativity in our seniors. And again, like, this is your building. Like, you are our seniors, you are our leaders. So like, we want to make sure that we have trust in you to not screw up our parking lot. And this was a battle that Mr. Scarpino and I had to go through a little bit, but he eventually caved in like he does to me all the time. And the kids did a great job. Like, they did phenomenal. And again, like, this is ownership. This is what we want you to do. This is very similar to like what my daughter's room looks like, but like, we want you to be on display because like, this is your spot. This is who you are.
I caved to the kids, Mr. McCann. I caved to the kids.
I know
not
you did.
To the kids.
I know you did. You're right. Next thing we did, these are our two newest projects. So these are class of wall displays. So what we did is we created, we got these signs from School Pride, which did all the decals. And so what we have done, what Ms. Durkin's classes have done, is they have created collages all along the second floor that just show, again, pictures of like kids in each particular class. And so the goal is hopefully like once a quarter we change out the pictures. So the hope is, you know, if we have like 10 to 12 pictures per class, that the kids are all seeing themselves, and over the course of the year, like their 4 years, like they can be like, oh yeah, like that's me on the wall. And the cool part is that most of these pictures, they're all like in action photos. Like, the kids don't even know they're being taken, but it just shows like the smiles and how excited they are. Like, it's awesome at Streetsboro High School. We make great memories, and we want to capture these memories. And then the last thing, which is kind of like our grand finale, if you will, we worked really hard over the last couple years to highlight a lot of the great things that have taken place here. And so we wanted to have like a wow factor. You know, what we wanted to do is we wanted to have a wow factor, but we wanted to do it in a way where like the kids felt ownership and they felt like part of it. But we also wanted to make it where like it looked professionally done, like it looked like first class, like all the way. And so with the help of both our student council and then a local group called Town Hall 2, we were able to kind of do what we needed to do to create these wall murals. So this is the upstairs wall mural that pretty much every kid goes in. And what we try to do is we try to make it somewhat thematic for the upstairs wall. So it's like a past, present, and future. So we have like, for example, like to the far left, we have like Bob Long teaching a class in like 1981. And then to the far right, we have students from SES. We have One Book, One School from DEFR. So the hope is that as these kids come up, they see themselves on the wall like, oh yeah, like that was me in 4th grade. Like that's pretty cool. But we want to get kind of like the whole scope as far as like where we've been, where we are, and like where we're going. So that's our upstairs wall. And then our stairwell wall was a pretty intense project. There's about 85 photos when it's all said and done. And again, one of the things that we always talked about is like, what do we do with this wall? Like we had talked about doing a little photo murals here and there, but like the problem is like that wall is so big, it kind of like eats everything up. So like this is like the ultimate wow factor. And I'm gonna kind of like show some more close-up pictures that you can see. Like the pictures come out incredible. And they're all just pictures that, again, for the most part, are our kids have taken. Some of them, like I've taken and posted on Twitter and then just like found them and, you know, like reposted them. But again, it's our kids, it's our staff, they're interacting. It's just about like the joy of being in high school and all the great memories and like capturing those for our kids. So that's pretty much it. Like we've done so much. We're so proud of our kids and like our school looks phenomenal. The only way it could look better is if we get a digital sign outside, but other than that, like we've done fantastic. So that's all I've got.
And
Thank you.
I thought we were friends,
You just
Mr.
saved,
McCann.
he
I
just
thought we
saved
were
us from
friends.
old business.
I have it in my report.
Oh, take it out.
Hey, you also have the Spirit Rock, Mr. McCann. Don't forget about that one
Yes,
too.
and the Spirit Rock.
The
Yes.
building
So-
looks incredible. I mean,
It does.
those murals are super cool.
Oh, they're
I
so
mean,
cool.
I am extremely impressed. So thank you very much. And
They are so cool.
Thanks for the shout out about the sign. I'm sure there'll be more to come.
Well, and I have to add, it's not easy to be an administrator, a teacher. It's not easy to be in school districts in 2022. And for you and our staff, from the teachers to the people that come up with these cool ideas that I would never be able to do, it keeps inspiring our kids. And that's what I want to see, so thank you. And I'm sure our teaching staff, and they were involved in some of this and got, you know, excited about it too. So thank you for all of it. I think it's great to have our focus on our kids.
Absolutely. Thanks, Earl.
Thanks, Mr. McCann. I just want to add to what Mrs. Bedford said, and specifically to Brett and his staff and Mrs. Zanker, because they presented tonight that, you know, Brett has done an outstanding job up here, the staff. They've done an outstanding job up here. And I think you'll see from when Mr. Isle comes up to do a presentation on our report card data, which is pretty encouraging, that when you see those high school scores, that's a direct reflection of the hard work the staff put in and the leadership by Mr. McCann. So I wanted to publicly say that now. I'll let you draw your own conclusions when you look at the data that's getting ready to be presented by Mr. Isle, but kudos, Brett, to you and your staff, and Lindsay, nice job too, and I hope Aurora feels better. And you guys, go home now. Go home and be with your families, and nice job. So next I'd like to, it looks like Matt's already up here. Matt's going to go over, Mr. Isle, Director of Curriculum Instruction. He's going to go over our state report card results. That's a new reporting system beginning this year. We've had some pauses due to the pandemic, but we do have some longitudinal data that's going to show some promising things, and I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to take anything away from Matt's presentation. So go ahead, Matt.
Thanks, Mr. Dalbaugh. By all means,
jump in. Pretty exciting stuff. Our updates. I'd like to start first, though, just to review a couple points on our mission and vision. The number one belief statement that we have here in the district is we believe students' growth and achievement are our top priorities. So I'm going to base this short presentation on the report card, not on every aspect, because I could be here till 10 o'clock tonight, and I know we all have things to do. But I think I'm glad that we believe that. When I joined the team here in Streetsboro, I was particularly intrigued by the strategic plan that the Streetsboro community and school district put together, because student growth and achievement should be our top priority. Quick review of our mission: partnering with families and community to provide personalized education that inspires and empowers students to be lifelong learners, productive members of our society. Presentation froze. Yes. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Oh, dude. I'm so proud of this.
So I can tell you that this did work about a half hour ago, because we went through it one more time. He was super excited about it. It's using a program called Prezi.
Whoa.
Nope.
We get it. We get it. That's our mission.
I'm a big fan of PowerPoint.
Darn.
There's going to be a quiz after this on our mission.
Andreas, are you going to help him?
There we go. Okay. All right. Our vision by 2023, that's this spring, our students will demonstrate at least 1 year of academic growth annually. Thanks, Andreas. Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about the report card that was, it appeared on our ODE website September 15th. I got the email, I logged on really quickly, and pretty much the entire ODE website crashed within minutes. But I ran down the hall and told Mike that, hey, things look pretty good, and then it was a really exciting day. Please note the report card this year is based on the new star rating system. Instead of giving districts A, B, C's, D's, the way they traditionally did, they're based on 5 stars. And they're measuring this year 5 areas. Next year will be 6 with an overall district rating for the district, but that's going to take place for the 23-24 school year. The 2 areas that I'd like to focus on tonight are the first 2, achievement and progress, but they also have gap closing, graduation, and early literacy. So achievement, we received 3 stars, and in ODE terms, the Department of Education says that 3 stars meets the standards in academic achievement. So kudos to the staff and the students that work so hard to achieve a certain level on the Ohio State tests, the proficiency tests, and the end of course exams. In progress, that component looks at the growth of students, and I really like that because it aligns really well to our strategic plan. So the forethought that our planners that put that strategic plan together, that I'm really glad that ODE caught up to the vision of the Streetsboro City School District. Right? It's growth that we should be particularly interested in.
So
Not necessarily how kids earn a score on a particular level, like a proficiency level. It measures, like, for example, 3rd grade tests, and then it takes the measure on how much that cohort of 3rd graders grew based on their 4th grade performance. So it's comparing students against themselves, if you will. And I think that's a real healthy way to look at the health of a school district or a classroom, how teachers are impacting kids.
So does this mean that if they stay on, per child, if they stay on this path, that as a whole, our district's report card or star rating should go up?
Yes. But what I'm really particularly for this sub-rating of progress, we received 5 stars, all 5 of the stars. So we made significant progress. 1 year or a year and a half post-pandemic. Last year was our first full year with kids pretty much in school every single day. I'm really excited. I'm not going to say I'm pumped about this, but I'm really, really excited that that we received all 5 stars. It's just a great measure of the hard work that's going on each and every day in our classrooms. Oh, sorry. Mike, I thought we had a good plan on this.
Did you forget your mouse?
There we go. Okay. Let's jump in a little bit about the progress. In ODE terms, they call it value added, and this is the only slide that has a lot of letters and a lot of words on it. But again, it measures academic growth rates for groups of students from one year to the next. It measures the change of an achievement for students, and comparing students against themselves. It also measures how much a group of students made relative to the expected growth. So what was expected and where were they? And it compares then to other similar students across the state. And here's a little story. We have another system called the EVOS system that we can dig into, and all of these scores for let's jump up and take a look at the 4 to 8 reading scores. Those were posted. They went online. We went live. I received the email Thursday afternoon, 7 calendar days ago. And I had like 4 emails from middle school teachers saying, Matt, for some reason, I can't dig into my value-added data yet. What's going on? I'm like, I don't know, let me dig into it. And I read a little bit deeper into the email, and they were able to release the district and the school value-added scores, but the teachers' scores will be posted in December, they said, in a couple of months. But that really made me feel pretty good as a district leader to know that we have staff members that really care deeply and really want to take a look at this and dive into this to see where we're going. For this metric, light blue is significant evidence. Green is that they made the growth as expected, and yellow means that students made less growth than expected. The middle line there is like 0, right? So they grew exactly as what we expected them to do. A positive 2 point, that's within the statistical deviation. So that's what is the green. So they can be a little bit below where they were and still meet in that green zone, if that makes sense. But there's a couple areas where we made huge growth or huge gains way above that 3 point mark. So like 4th grade, for example, they were low green, but okay, in 2021. 5th grade, they grew up pretty much to that, they made gains. But where I'm really impressed with was like something happened spring of 6th grade and all of 7th grade, because our 6th graders in 2021, now remember, those tests were given we weren't even expecting to give the tests then, and they came in February and they said, oh, by the way, districts, you now have to give these tests. And we all, quite frankly, told the teachers there's more important things to worry about. Let's just use it kind of as a diagnostic to see where we're at. But our 6th graders in 2021, they were in the yellow range, meaning that they didn't grow as expected. Obviously, there's lots of reasons why, namely a global pandemic affecting all of us. But look where they ended up in 7th grade. That's the same group, basically.
That's awesome.
We were taking some move-ins and some move-outs, but they were almost clearly in the blue. So some serious growth occurred there.
Matt, before you get off the slide, so board, just to understand, the green means they've grown at least a year.
Right.
The blue would be they've grown more than a year, and the yellow would represent less than a year. So sometimes people don't understand what expected growth is, more than expected growth or less. And so that actually drills right back to our strategic plan that we said we're going to grow each student at least 1 year. So that's taking all students, measuring where they were and in the year previous to where they are now. And then that's where you get that overall score. So that's an important note to make.
Mathematics, again, some really good good movement. Sixth grade again to seventh grade, one full year of solid instruction in place. Our fourth graders, they were just knocked it out of the park. Now, we did not have third grade data in 2021. I'm sorry, prior to that. So we did not have fourth grade data in 2021, excuse me, because we did not give the tests in third grade. And that was the first time for the test. We can see that. Eighth grade was in the yellow. I suppose I'm going to dig in once we get the individual student data in there, because like in seventh grade in 2021, they were clearly in the blue,
Yeah.
making a full year greater than a full year's growth. But then in eighth grade, they dropped into the yellow zone. I want to suppose that we take a cohort of really bright kids out of that seventh grade group, and we give them an Algebra 1 course for high school credit. And those Algebra 1 kids in eighth grade, they take the Algebra 1 end of course exam. So those 25 to 30 kids are no longer part of the cohort, the seventh grade cohort that they were in. So we want to do that. Obviously, we want to jumpstart the high school career with Algebra 1 in our math track. But I have a feeling we're probably always going to look like we're in the yellow because they were all taking the seventh grade test as seventh graders. And then we kind of skip that eighth grade test, and they take the Algebra 1 test for high school credit. So that's what I think has happened.
Yeah, so just to make sure everyone understands that's listening is that as seventh graders, we tested all students on the seventh grade test, but in eighth grade, there was you take that top cohort of students, your top students, and we gave them the opportunity for high school credit with Algebra 1. So those kids were included in the high school end of course exams for Algebra 1 and taken out of the eighth grade. Now, that's not an excuse because we do need to move that bar up.
Right.
But that is to be noted that you take your top performing students in seventh grade and you pull them out because they did have the opportunity for high school end of course exam credit. And then the other observation to make too is that this Board of Education approved a significant investment in not only a new math curriculum, but also a math coach. And last year would have been the first year of implementation. So while we don't necessarily have any specific data, one could assume that with a completely new curriculum in place that was more aligned to the standards, our old math curriculum was not aligned to the standards, which is why we adopted it, along with the work of our reading coach helping support instruction. One could surmise, again, I don't have that data to show that for sure, that this could also be the effects of our new math curriculum. So I just wanted to add that.
I just have a question. You could spin data a lot, but is that kind of the way that other districts are showing on their report as well?
We don't get to dig into the EVOS, the value-added data for other districts, but we can take a look at other like districts on our district report card. And yeah, I'm very encouraged by this.
Is that an anomaly just for us, or other school districts?
I don't know. That's a good question that I can pose to my curriculum directors group from the ESC to find out. If we have a significant drop, value-added drop. So that's part of what. But like I said, this data just showed up a week ago.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see that because the reading scores also for that eighth grade dropped down as well. So I would be very curious to see what other districts, how it looks for them as well.
Fifth and eighth grade science, it's a little bit different kind of test because they don't have a fourth grade science test. They only test the kids in fifth and eighth grade. And this goes, what I'm going to explain now also has to do with the end of course exams at the high school. In order to get a growth measure, they take a look at the students. They have to have 3 Ohio State tests regardless of subject. So they have to have like a math or 2 maths and an ELA test, and that kind of gives them that baseline score to see for like a predictive analysis to see, okay, so then their score in the 8th grade science will tell us, okay, where they land on this graphic, if you will. But kudos to our 8th grade science teachers. Just again, they knocked it out of the park with their value added, the amount of growth that, because the kids far surpassed the anticipated what the state metric thought that our kids would be able to perform the last 2 years in the area of science. As a former science teacher, that's really encouraging. The last one, I don't want to say I saved the best for last, but this goes along with exactly what Mr. McCann said that they've really huge emphasis on culture here at the high school. It's paying huge dividends in academics. You know, we believe that if we take care of the whole child, that the academics will just be an incredible byproduct. So take a look at this. These are all end of course exams. 2021, our algebra growth rates were high green and then in the blue last year. The government, the social studies courses, they only have 2022 data because in the year 2021 they did not give that test. But again, green, two subjects in the blue, and biology as well. The end of course the English ELA exams, clearly in the blue. So what that's telling us is that our kids are far surpassing what the state is anticipating we should be doing. It kind of gives me some chills. So congratulations to Mr. McCann and Mrs. Anker and their team. In geometry, we all know that geometry is an end of course exam that is just, it's a real tough one. It doesn't, you know, it's tough to do, and special shout out to Mrs. DiLorenzo and Mrs. Serp for their work. They have really embraced the data-driven decision-making and how they go about planning their daily lessons, and you can see that they're making great connections with kids, and they're connecting kids with really good content. So I know this is being taped and thrown out there to the YouTube for all the world to see, so hopefully they're listening, because I'm really proud of what our high school teachers, everyone across the board are doing. The area of growing our kids. Oh, sorry. I wanted to use a Prezi because I just thought it would be cool.
I would say, Mr. Isle, I would love to see some type of a one-pager on communication sent out to our parents, because they're probably not watching this on YouTube, and I think the views are quite low. I mean, I am
But
a
why?
superstar, but they are kind of low. I don't
We're
know
not getting
why.
1 million views tonight.
But I would love to see a one-pager that gets sent home, something we can post. We have to start communicating around the good things that are happening. Yes, there are things outside that are not always where we want them. I think we course correct and we try to make them better. But when we have good news to share before a report card gets posted somewhere, I'd love to see a one-pager that hits parents between the eyes, that they can read and glance at quickly to see what progress we're making.
Love that idea. And in fact, I'm not sure the timeline, but Mr. Dahlbaugh's superintendent update for this week, I think it's going out this evening sometime.
It should be already out.
We did summarize this, and there is a link so people can dig in and take a look at this. But you're right, we need people to see and keep promoting the good news. The last thing that I'd like to talk quickly about is the 3-star achievement that we received. Just real quick, to get the 3 stars, which is meeting the state standards in academic achievement, we needed a score of 70%, but less than 80% was the max score for the performance index rating. To move up to 4 stars, we need to be in that 80 to 90% range, and then the 5 stars would be that 90% range. So I wanted you to see that first. I just wanted to show you real quick the performance index, and this is based on like how the kids do. Are they proficient, limited, basic, accelerated, advanced on the various Ohio State tests? And there's a mathematical formula. You know, we had 14% of our kids across the board, grades 3 through 8, and then all the high school and of course exams. 14% of our kids scored in the advanced range, weighted at 1.2 for 16.7 points received, and all the way down the line. I'm really proud of the fact that we had less than half a percent of our students who were untested. That was relatively rare. Especially last year because we were still dealing with the COVID. You have to stay home for 5 days if you're diagnosed, you come in contact with whatever, and there were a few kids that we could not get them tested within the required window of time. So I'm hoping that our untested number will drop, but that was wonderful. So we ended up with 81.6 points out of a possible 107.3, and they came up with that 107 performance index. is like the goal compared to similar districts, is us, similar size, similar demographics. And so we ended up with 76.1%, less than 4 percentage points for moving into the 4-star range. So I'm really proud of that performance index score, and already our administrative team, we've been talking about how we can identify more kids to be taking that advanced plus, scoring in that advanced plus range. That has to do with some students that are testing above grade level, like that 8th grade cohort that we talked about, that if they take the test above, we can code them a little bit differently and possibly get some additional points. So Mrs. Kravitz and Mr. McCann brought that to me a couple of weeks ago. We've been talking about those sorts of things as well, and how we can kind of play that mathematical game a little bit more to get us some more PI points. But this other graphic here, this is a 5-year where we were, like this is 2018, we were at 87.9 was our PI score. We grew it to 2019, 89.1. 2020, they say we really shouldn't look at 2020 because that was the year of the pandemic. 2021, 75.9, we got a little bit better, and then this last year, 81.6. So we're definitely trending and climbing in the right direction, and that's something that we all want to see. And when we talk about school district data, we survived a lot. We all did, but we can't really use that as an excuse. But I'm just really glad to see that we're climbing out of it. And Mike and I talked a lot, while we're in the midst of the pandemic, and said, it's going to take a long time to get out of this. This is not going to be, okay, the pandemic's over, and we no longer have to wear masks. And because a lot of our kids just really struggled. And so I'm really proud of our staff for trying to get more than a year's worth of growth and get those kids caught up quickly. So that's encouraging. We should all be encouraged by that too.
Hey, Matt, can you just go back to that graph again?
Sure. Maybe.
When you look at the limited block and you go from 18, 19, 20, that grew in 20, and it seems to be diminishing again.
Great.
And I think that's encouraging to look at that, because then it takes that group of students and moves them into another category where you actually get more points.
Absolutely.
But more importantly, it's the group of students that are getting more education.
Well,
or moving up the scale.
absolutely. And, in this graphic here, yeah, just by nature, we're going to have more kids, that are not going to take these tests. I don't want to say seriously. It just really wasn't that important.
Right.
Surviving was important. Making sure that, kids are healthy and fed and their parents are safe. That was important. So, as a district, we really didn't put a great emphasis on the state tests, because our kids are more important, in their life. And obviously this is really, really important because we want our kids to thrive academically. But there's lots of reasons why, we have fewer kids in the advanced range and more kids in the limited range. And I think because we're all trying to survive, right?
It's encouraging to see that that's changed. There
Right,
is a
limited-
change coming with that.
Yeah,
So-
Mr. Viola, to take that a step further, if you look at if you block together the basic and the limited, which basic you're saying they didn't grow the way we
Exactly.
expected to, and then you compare and contrast that to the proficient range only, you're going to see that proficient range climbing and the block together basic and limited shrinking, and that's what we want to see. Of course, we always want kids in the black and the green, but to be completely clear, proficient's where they need to be.
Yep.
So you want to see the proficient at least growing and they're limited and basic shrinking. So that's what we're seeing. Again, I know that I hope folks aren't saying, but we've got so many still limited in basic. Yes, we do, and we still have a ton of work to do. None of us are saying that, and our teachers know that as well. But I think this is encouraging, and to be quite honest with you, I think this from my perspective, Mike Dahlbaugh only, my perspective is I didn't expect these results yet this year. I knew our staff was working hard. I knew our kids were working hard. but I didn't expect our results to look the way they do this year. So to me, we got to continue on this positive trajectory. But
Well, and we even said
Congratulations.
in 2020, I vividly remember conversations where we said, if all we're teaching is the soft skills
Yep.
of how do you deal with a pandemic when none of us knew how to deal with it, when our staff didn't know how to deal with it, and then you add the growth that we got out of the time as we're coming out of the pandemic, I am incredibly proud and thankful for our staff and for the hard work that they put into this
And
progress.
I mean, and from a purely academic standpoint, it's going back to the strategic plan, the pandemic, really forced us to do a lot of things quicker, faster and better, like getting kids one-to-one and teachers, being able to embrace the technology to be able to engage kids. So now that we're back in full-time, I see in my visits, out and around the buildings, I see a lot more kids more engaged with the 21st century learning skills that we've been talking about for years that I'm not sure we would have gotten to quite as quickly had we not had to endure the pandemic. So that's exciting. And if we go back to those growth measures, even those kids that are in that limited range, we still have evidence that we grew them. They may still be limited, but they made a year's worth of growth, which is really exciting. So there's lots of ways to look at it.
You should be super excited and pumped. I'm impressed with what I'm seeing.
Agreed. And if you'll have me back next month, I'd love to dive in and talk a little bit about gap closing. That was one of the areas that we received 4 stars as a district. But this is where our schools ended up. Henry Deffer Intermediate, under Mrs. Kravitz's leadership and her team, they scored 3 stars in achievement, 4 stars in progress, and 5 stars in gap closing. That's phenomenal work by that group of teachers. Streetsboro Elementary School, we've got some work, and it's really, I'm encouraged by the plan that Mrs. Abraham and Mrs. Wolf are planning, and they're really working hard on changing some cultures things, and we're looking at some Tier 1 curriculum resources. So we're really excited about the future for Streetsboro Elementary School. But they were, scored, 2 stars in most areas, and we'd really like them to get into the 3-star area, obviously, at least this year. Streetsboro High School, again, kudos to them, 4, 5 stars for gap closing. Our graduation rate is 3 stars. We're only like 2 percentage points away from being in the 4-star range. That's based on percentages. I think we had like 93% of our kids graduate this year on time, and I think we needed to be like 95 or 94.8 or something like that to get the 4-star mark. In the middle school, under Mrs. Zanker and Ms. Taylor's leadership, they were all clearly in right where the state says that they ought to be in those stars. So I'm happy with the way, because I was a little nervous about, what is this star rating system going to be like? It's brand new. It is, and so when these came out, I was jumping for joy, if you will, because it just really shows the good work that the individual teachers and staff members are doing. It takes all of us. I know we're talking a lot about academics, but it goes from the bus drivers greeting the preschoolers, in the driveway, to the coaches on the playing field saying, hey, you better make sure these grades are taken care of. You're not going to play Friday night, to everyone. So I'm just really proud. Know that there's still work to do. I'm thankful for that. It's called job security. Without it, you wouldn't need any of us. But I definitely say the future is bright and looking, we're trending in the right direction.
Nice job.
any questions or comments for Matt?
Just for your own research, I wanted to
Yeah, you have
give
that.
you just a quick handout with a QR code so you can take a deeper dive. So if community members, look and ask you some questions, obviously direct them to me or Mike or any of the building principals. But I just wanted you to have some cheat sheets you can snap. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
A little tip, if you use the QR code for the Prezi, make sure you have a mouse handy, It's much easier to navigate with the mouse.
It looks different on your phone. But. Thanks, everyone, for your patience.
So Matt will be coming back next month to dig into, if you missed that, gap closing, graduation rate, and the K-3 literacy.
One of the reasons gap closing deals a lot with our subgroups comparing to majority of kids. So a big part of that deals with our special ed population. So I'm hoping by next month, Mrs. Devers is going to be on the mend enough that we can talk through it and talk about the initiatives that she has planned. So that was one of the reasons why I just wanted to give a shout out to my colleague and partner there in the curriculum world, Mrs. Devers. So thanks, folks, for taking the time to talk about academics with me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Rao.
you, Mr.
You're
Rao.
welcome.
Okay, and finally, I think I'm on track to maybe beat Mr. Scarsapino's report today, because I have looked at it and it's very long. So get your water bottles and pillows. Anyway, so staff or board, this is like in direct relationship to our report card, this next discussion. I want to talk about staff collaboration days, and the reason I want to bring this up is we have asked our staff over the last couple of years, I believe from my seat, to do more and more and to make up more ground based on, and we keep using that ugly word of the pandemic, and we keep asking them to do more, and we've also rolled out more curriculum, and at the elementaries, they still have all of their required planning and collaboration time and uninterrupted lunch and planning time, but we did restructure the day to give more time on instruction and reading, the language arts, and math. So they are instructing more because, again, we recognize that we need to continually move the bar forward. And one of the things that we've really heard loud and clear last year, and I wasn't prepared to make this recommendation in August because, as you know, I was out for the majority of the year last year, and so I really wanted to kind of look, listen, and see where we were at. But one of the things I've heard in an overwhelming way is that, is there a way we can go back to that old concept of waiver days? I don't know if you remember those or not. And you'd have to apply, superintendent would have to apply with the state of Ohio to do a waiver day. And the waiver day had to be a day specific to teacher content. And I had to submit a report at the end of the school year with attendance sheets and agendas and so forth and so on. Well, they did away with waiver days when they moved from days to hour and minute, basically butts and seats requirements. And so what I've heard over and over again is, Mike, is there any way that we can get some collaboration days to do the work, to look at this data, to meet as teacher-based teams, to meet as departments and say, what is our data telling us at the end of the first quarter? What is our data telling us at the end of the second quarter? You get the drift. And look at data in order to change instruction, because that's where you make a difference. If you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. But if you look at data, you're going to have better results. I mean, and everyone in this auditorium probably knows that. You need to be data-driven. Well, our teachers, to be very frank with you, don't have a lot of time during the day where they can sit down and together work on that. So what I'm proposing is this, and I will say when I hired Matt, one of the first things he said to me in his interview with me was, so how many staff teacher collaborations days do you have? And I said, none. We don't really have any. And he said, well, if you want to move the bar, you need to do that. And I said, well, we're not ready to do that. Well, as I'm thinking about this and I'm meeting with staff over the last couple months, Mr. Iowa and I were having a conversation a couple weeks ago. And you guys know I like to kid Matt, but when I brought up is it okay if I say this, Matt? Yes. Yeah, when I brought up the idea of doing staff collaboration days, I swear he jumped up like Buddy the Elf, which is his favorite movie. And he goes, you've got to be kidding me, it's about time. And I'm kidding aside, if you want to move instruction, I think every curriculum director you ever talk to anywhere is going to say, then you have to give teachers a chance to collaborate and work on the work and being data informed. So what I'm proposing is this. Later in the agenda, of course, I can take it off if I don't have, if the board's not comfortable voting on this. But what I'm proposing is this. Matt and I looked at the calendar, and we have 3 days proposed for staff collaboration days this year and then we would look at the calendar for next year and in following years and do one a quarter. So this year, what we tried to do was look at the calendar, and we looked at dates or weekend dates where it's already an extended weekend, where families might enjoy another day in order to maybe do something extended with their family. And then we were trying to leverage that then to say, okay, so if it's already a 3-day weekend, maybe make this a 4-day weekend, or if it was tagged up to a holiday, in order for our staff to come in and collaborate. So I listed the days of, and you might have to refresh your screen because I had the wrong date, but November 28th, January 13th, and March 27th. I'm proposing, these are all weekends, if you look at our master staff calendar, these are all weekends that we already have that are natural breaks in the action, if you will. And what I'd like to propose is that this board allow us to move forward with 3 staff collaboration days, and those are focused collaboration days. Those are not teachers come in and do what you want to do, which we know they would do what they needed to do, but this is going to be focused collaboration from our curriculum department, our superintendent's department, our SPED department, and our principals. And it's going to focus on looking at data in order to change the instruction in what we're doing. So I put those days down there. Those are the days I'm proposing. And then the goal would be to modify next year's calendar before next year, because it is already published. By the way, we will change the published calendars on the website to reflect this if the board approves it, and I will put these in a newsletter next week. And then all of our principals will publish these as well. So we'll make sure that everyone knows. We'll get rid of the old calendars. But we want to do that. So any thoughts on staff collaboration days? I know I talked to CJ and I talked to Andreas, our folks, our operations team, Amanda Haar, Director of Transportation, and they were excited when they heard this. I won't speak for them, but I will say that they said that there are a lot of things that they can do with our classified staff as well in order to help move the bar. So thoughts from the board on that idea, and then I have one other idea to pitch under this topic.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, listening to the experts, you say it's a good idea. It sure sounds like it.
It's hard to not have collaboration days, so I fully support it.
I neglected to point out that we are well over the number required of days in each building. At SES, we actually have 31.26 more days than are required by the state of Ohio. At Henry Deffer Intermediate, we have 32.57. At Streetsboro Middle School, we have 34.36. At Streetsboro Middle School, we have 21.36 days. And at Streetsboro High School, we have 23.89 days. And that's all based on minutes of student contact. So those are the number of days that we're over the state required minimum number of hours and minutes. So then we equated that to days. So we are over the required minutes and days per the state of Ohio's and state legislature's requirements.
How would we adjust if we had snow days?
I would propose that we do not adjust that, but as superintendent, I have always said that I will never take our district beyond the 5 that are given to us from the state, plus the 3 blizzard bag days. Anything beyond that, we will make up, period. And that some people are upset with me about that because you heard how many extra days we have, but we also have a curriculum that we need to teach. So I will never take this district beyond the 8 days unless I'm directed to do so by this board. Now, we could have more than 8 days, but it's going to be made up, and it's going to be made up at the end of the school year.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Those are all good questions.
I would say leave it on.
Okay. And again, board, this honestly was just, Matt and I have been going back and forth about this for several days, and I thought, you know what, I need to bring this in front of the board now.
And this is supported by our teachers, obviously. They want this. Okay.
And I want everyone to know, too, that I have talked to the union about this as well, and they agree that these will be focused collaboration days. So this is not going to be, a day. We have some days built into our calendar where teachers use those days to get their report cards ready or get ready for conferences. That is not what this is. This is for our TBTs, teacher-based teams, to get together and look at data and say, what are we doing now and what do we need to do differently in order to move the bar?
How can you report on what was done during those days?
I think that, I shouldn't say it should be easy, bless you.
Do you need a tissue?
But I think that we will have structured feedback from those dates because Matt's going to be integral part on this. Our district leadership team, Matt leads that. I'm a member of that as well. We're going to be determining what data to look at and how to look at it. But each building principal, they have their own sets of data. We use our MAP testing that we use across all grade levels. That's new last year, and it gives us very good data. And what we're discovering is that MAP data is very predictive of where our students are. So, and we give that frequently. So we'll use that MAP data. We also have other various data points like the PSAT. We have Acadience data, which is your elementary reading data that we give frequently. That's how we determine through the MTSS process in our elementaries, what kids are reading below grade level, what kids are reading non-grade level, and what are above, and who do we need target instruction for. So we use that Acadience data to do that. So those are all the different data points that we'll use in order to then say, okay, then what are we going to do on this teacher collaboration day? And then what was the result of that collaboration? So I don't even remember who asked me, and I'm looking at all of you, so I'm sorry, but, okay. So we're going to have that data, and we're going to, we should be able to at least give a very comprehensive overview at a board member meeting following that day.
Yeah, or have
That's
some
a good-
teachers come in. It would be nice to hear from them too,
I mean,
if
it's
they
just-
want to come.
Be nice to see, if you look at it as in business, when you make a spend, you look for a return. And I'm not sure how you could quickly do that, but it'd be nice to get some follow-up from it.
Okay, it's a fair ask. And then we were at our first safety meeting, which is required by House Bill something. But we're required this year by the state to have district-wide safety meetings. Andreas down here and CJ were our hosts. Andreas led the meeting. It was a very well-run meeting. But one of the things that came out of this meeting was the sense that, and Mr. Grimm was also a part of that meeting. And one of the things that came out of this meeting was, could we have a day for staff dedicated to only staff for safety? And there are so many topics that we could continually review: our stop the bleed buckets, our safety protocols. There are so many items around safety, what to do in an ALICE drill, various types of ALICE drills. We're going to build into the calendar next year a safety day dedicated to only safety training for staff. And one thing that the safety committee asked me to do is we were prepared to add that as a day next year. And ideally probably before school starts, but it might be like within the first month of school. But what does the board think about the possibility of adding a safety day, maybe at some point this year? Again, that would be just staff, and it would be focused on 100% safety practices. Are there any, and please know that we were not prepared to ask tonight for a day, but in hindsight, I thought, you know what? We're talking about days now, I might as well just bring it up. So I know you're on the spot with this. We're just talking about it. If there's an overwhelming sense from this board to say, Mike, if you can find a day that fits, bring it back to us in November, and we'll consider it, then I will do that. If you say, yeah, we'd rather not do it this year, let's focus on next year, that's fine too. I'm not prepared with a date tonight, but if you guys say, Mike, look into it, and see if there's a date that works that's not too much of an impact for our families. So I would probably look on a Friday or a Monday, and I will do that. So I don't mean to drop this on you last minute. I'm dropping this on you last minute. I apologize, but what are your thoughts?
I would be fine with it as long as it followed up with a parent town hall meeting.
Yep, agreed.
I like that idea because there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that a lot of people in the community don't know, but there's things that they can be told so that they're at least aware of what's going on.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think pushing safety meeting off until next year is a bad idea. I think we should never put that off. We should absolutely have it.
I'm good with it. I'd probably like to see some type of an agenda of what would happen.
That's
that
easy.
day.
That's easy. Thank you, and to Kristen's, Mrs. Bedford's point, we were planning it on, but we've not put any agenda together or a date yet, but we were planning to do one because to all of your point, you all just basically said that. We always need to emphasize safety, and Kevin's correct, Mr. Grimm's correct. We have so many good things in place right now, and I think it's time to revisit that with our parents in light of our national tragedies that have occurred. A lot of that's been thrust back into our faces, just even recently as today with some of the court cases that have been going on around the nation regarding trials of these tragedies at schools. I'll just leave it at that. Yes, so that's a great idea, Mrs. Bedford. I think that probably second semester, the beginning of second semester would be a good time to target that as far as a forum for our parents. I'm going to put Mrs. Campbell on the spot because she helped organize our one that we had prior to. So maybe, Tracy, if you don't mind, maybe you and I could work together on
Absolutely.
that because Tracy was our PTA president and she had just a ton of good ideas. And it was probably, an hour and a half long at least.
It was probably close to 2 hours. It was a great event, and it was very much needed because it was right after the shooting in Parkland.
Yes.
So it was,
and it was
people
a
wanted
great
to know,
event.
what are we doing?
And that was kudos to Mrs. Campbell sitting over there. There were a lot of people behind it, but it was her idea, and she drove that. So, yes. So, Mrs. Bedford, yes, absolutely. So I will work on a date. If I come back to you next month and say, here are a few dates, here's some possible agenda items, then you folks can say yes or no at that point. But we will have some structure toward it. CJ and Andres will put some structure together and have that ready for the next board meeting. It'll be a quick presentation. Okay, so board, I'm hearing that I'm going to leave my recommendation on for the staff collaboration days, and then I will work on a staff safety day. Parents, I will own this and apologize to all of you that this is a surprise for parents. I'll make sure that I get these dates out to you ASAP, but please know that I wouldn't suggest this to our board unless I felt it was going to be of great benefit to our kids. And so parents, be mad at me if you're upset about this, but I will get you those dates as soon as I can. And that concludes my report.
And Mr. Dalbaugh, the first date for staff collaboration is more than a month off, so I think there's plenty of time to make plans. So I wouldn't even worry about it.
Thank you, Mr. Dalbaugh. Moving on to Treasurer's report. Are you awake over there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
We'll never make fun of you again, Kyle.
Thank you.
Touche.
Until next month. I was going to say, isn't that coming up soon?
What time is it right now?
I had my fingers crossed.
Sorry, Mr. Johansson. All right. I do promise to be very quick. On the scheduled agenda, there was a part for Mr. Dawson to talk about, give the board an update about the Disney trip and the band program. But I did, seeing the agenda, I texted Mr. Dawson. I was like, okay, let's wait. We'll wait till next month for that. So he was more than happy to do that. So, so I will be quick for today. 3 items to talk about: the August general fund, the September general fund. Remember at the last month, it was pretty quick where we had our second Tuesday because the first was a Thursday, second Thursday. So we didn't have enough time in our treasurer's office to properly close, but we did that for August and September. And then also going to nerd out a little bit and just talk briefly about some accounting cleanup on our books that have just been collecting dust over the past 8 years. And Mr. Violi,
Did you say nerd it up?
I'm going to nerd out. Oh, yeah. Mr. Violi will understand this because he's talked to me a few times.
About nerding it up?
About the books
I know
part.
nothing about that. I have no input on it.
As a reminder, you'll see a revenues over expenses of $2.4 million for August. So our cash balance at the end of August was $14.5 million. And it was the main revenues were from the property tax collections and manufactured homes collections. And expenditures were pretty average with payroll, healthcare, and purchase service agreements. It's very high. Our cash balance is typically always the highest in August and March. And we receive revenues, roughly 15.5–16% of our revenues for the entire year in the general fund come in August. September is going to be a little bit skewed. We did receive 2 state foundation and our homestead and rollback collection. Disbursements for $2.7 million. That's mainly because we had 3 payrolls in September. And we do, and you'll see in the forecast, obviously there are a lot of great things happening, but that also is more investment by the board. And so you'll see there's the question really, what I'll show you in the forecast next month is the rate of spend to what is collecting coming out of the pandemic within the general fund. So that's basically the theme of next month, I guess. So the expenses over revenues for September was 1.5 million, and we ended in a balance of 12.9 million. So my last topic was accounting cleanup. So you will see as a part of my recommendations today is basically, we call them intra-fund transfers. With the assistant treasurer and I, Linda Shircourt and I getting together, wanting to do this since heck I got here, is looking what's on our books and what may have worked or made sense with financial activity a few years ago may not work or make sense now. Nothing against the past. There are decisions that were made. It probably were good decisions at the time, but schools progress, decisions that were progress, and so it's time to look at just some cleanup on stuff. So what you'll see is 6 different, quote-unquote, intra-fund transfers just to clean up some lines that were just sitting there, and I'll joke of collecting dust. And so inter-fund transfers is basically what you'll see is what they're sub-funds. So a sub-fund of the general fund is what in Ohio we call special cost centers. It depends on the different states and different municipalities. So these sub-funds are basically special cost centers. That's what I'll talk about. And the first one, so these they're not classified as expenditures. If you look at a really detailed, very interesting expenditure report, they look like expenditures. But on consultation with on our audit team, they just take those out. So it does not affect our audit for next year. It actually helps it because it just looks cleaner. And so there are 6, the middle 4 are for our 018 funds. Those are mainly principal funds. We did have some other funds from the past that was collected at some point, but then for years you can see 1956, $40.09, 19 cents. Those have just been in those line items for a number of years. And so we're just moving those funds to what is actually being used now. So we're going to go back in time a little bit. I know it was a little bit uncomfortable for the district on June 2nd of 2010 when there was the fire at the high school. So a long period of time after that, what happens? The insurance plays out. That's why the district has expensive insurance for one of those reasons, and we've continued to have a pretty good coverage plan from that. So let's go back in time. There are 2 board members that are still here from the board agenda on Thursday, July 9th of 2015. That was when, quote unquote, that was the final transaction between our insurance company and the district for the fire. And so we paid an amount out, which was calculated and talked about for years. And in return, we received $41,424.89. And for 2,653 days, That 41,000 is just sitting on our books. Sitting on our books for 2,653 days. We're going to end that tonight. It goes rolled up into the Permanent Improvement Fund, makes it cleaner. Now that those are operational, it's not restricted anymore. Did get a legal opinion? Is this restricted? That's the biggest question. Was it restricted funds? And the answer now is no. And so that is with the high school fire claim. And then last thing to talk about is kind of the big one. And researching the district before I came on board, I looked at a cash activity report. I'm like, what is that? Those giant $1 million, $1.2 million negatives on our books. And whatever it was at the time, probably to track something for the state, and that's probably likely changed, is it's just not necessary anymore. So we're moving that 111 and 333 special cost center into the regular general fund, and then it's going to just look a lot nicer at the end. So it's kind of like there's still work to be done to make it a little bit more cleaner and more fresh, but those are just some of the stuff that we had time in the treasurer's office. So you'll see those recommendations today. So thank you. Or any questions? Any questions?
I just want to say thank you for cleaning that up. I know
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
I've been talking to you for a couple months on it, but
Yeah.
you reacted pretty quick on it, so thank you.
No problem. Did everybody fall asleep from accounting cleanup? That's it? That's it?
Thank you, Mr. Kiffer. Moving on to the Chief Business Officer's report.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Johansson up quickly. 5 minutes, sir. We've been talking about safety days, safety meetings, all that good stuff. Andreas and I have been focused on some safety items and created a team with Mr. Dahlbaugh, Mr. Grimm, and several building administrators. And the plan is to meet once a month and discuss some things. But we've also created a safety portal with Officer French and Andreas running it. We want to just show you some screen grabs from it. It's not ready to go live yet, but it will be very soon. And so we're going to share that with you tonight.
So we thought part of the service that we can do for our staff members is to simplify some of the stuff that is behind the scenes. Like Mr. Grimm said, some of the safety stuff does get pretty complicated. And it's a lot of, at the end of the day, it's a lot of text that we then have to file with ODE and whatnot. So we try to simplify that for our staff. Like, what does that mean for real life? And so we built a portal that we are releasing next week that will have some refresher materials. It'll have some explanations. It'll have some videos of things that we typically don't do as a district, and I'll show you a snippet of that video here shortly. But an example would be window evacuations. It's not a good idea to take the whole district through, or every building through evacuating through the windows, because the risk of someone getting hurt is real. And so instead we create some videos and sort of show people, here's what that would look like, so you have an idea what that is. What you're seeing here is a quick video on how to use one of the items that's in the Go Bucket. We took some time to rebrand the Go Buckets after CJ and Kyle French and myself got our ALICE certifications a few weeks ago. That was their recommendation, to just call it a Go Bucket because it should go with you, and it has a lot of stuff in it that can make you go, and you can also go in it. And so instead of stopping the bleed or having to do with blood, we are just calling it Go Buckets. So here, as an example then, here's a list of everything that should be in there. And I know it's hard and it's small to read, but for our staff members then, we're going to ask them to take a more active role. So when it's time to refresh the water, we're going to ask them to do that. When it's time to refresh the snacks, we're going to ask them to do that. Kyle and I have spent a couple days out in the buildings staging the tourniquets and the buckets and make sure that they are up to date. And so then we thought we'll just have that here too as a checklist for ourselves, what should be in there, and then obviously what to do with that. So just show you a quick video, and I'll skip forward here. Hopefully there's sound. All right, we're here with a window that we see, and it's a good idea to take. And in an emergency, you could evacuate as there's you from your classroom. Skip forward. To the hallway. Next up, we'll show you the proper way to have
Thank you
kids.
for the tutorial
So again, this
on
is,
how to open a window.
What's that? It's difficult.
important.
So just some simple stuff, right? So it's not a good idea for us to have the entire school building
Secondary step.
get out through the windows.
Or something else. It is not a good idea to have a
But
table or something that can.
some of our staff members have helped us, so we did a video.
Perfect. And we're gonna have the first guy come through.
I'm going to mute that. This is a middle school, 7th grade classroom. Mrs. Johnson helped us out. And we just come in and do a sort of a one-take video with a couple of angles to show the practical aspects of what is it like. We did another one at Henry Deffer. Henry Deffer has very different windows. They look very different from the rest of our building. This is the same type of window that we have at elementary school, middle school, and the high school, with the exception that high school, elementary school, they don't crank open. They just push and out they go. So our hope for this is that staff will then take it, and when we do a table talk or when they review things, or we're going to have a fire drill, they can review, here's what we would do in the case of a window evacuation, as opposed to kind of guessing what that's like.
It's on-demand, quick videos on how to do certain things for refresher, or if there's time or you're looking for an answer.
And adults can jump out too.
Correct. And kind of a hub. Now that is for internal users only. It'll only be an internal user platform because there's going to be some other items out there to help with safety that is internal use only. But we have a team that's involved with this, and we're looking at it from every angle, from police, fire, city resources, internal school resources. And so we're excited about what's being created here. And I very much appreciate Andreas's leadership in the safety role here in the school district and taking that on and taking a very serious, active role, and Officer French and Captain Grimm, always willing to be a part of those conversations. We're very lucky to have those resources at our disposal.
Thank you. Next up, something lighter. Oh,
Yeah, so before we hop into the, is there any questions on the safety portal? Okay, before we hop into the rest of the agenda, we did create an operations newsletter. Our first edition went out last month. It'll go out once a month. It'll be attached to Mike's email, but then it will also be on the website. And it was an email sent out to all staff and all families that we have email addresses for. Just an overview. What do we do? What's going on in the district that's non-educational, and highlighting some of those great things. Just another resource to get out there, what's happening, inform families, parents, staff members of all the wonderful things going on in this school district, because there are a ton every single day that's happening. So I just wanted to share that really quick as Andreas is scrolling through, just giving you an idea of what it'll look like. And it'll look like this every month. The format, it's easy to read on a cell phone. That was our biggest item. We wanted to make it user-friendly on a phone. And I was very pushy in that regard because I wanted it to be kind of interactive and cool looking. And the idea that I had wouldn't be user-friendly on a phone. So Andreas and Dan Stitzel, I said, well then figure that out for me, please. Because I have the ideas, but they're the technical expertise on that matter. So thank you to them. Big shout out to them.
You're not pushy.
Okay.
Not at all.
No,
So-
I've never heard that.
All right, moving forward. Rental agreements. So last month I asked for the board to adopt true policy and pricing structure, and I'm happy to report, thanks to you doing that, we have a new revenue stream coming into this school district that we never had before. Tonight I'm going to ask you to approve 3 rental agreements, close to $30,000 in revenue for the school district. We have an additional $20,000 out right now to see if the contracts are going to be signed or not. And we're going to keep on working through that. What this does, because it involves a lot of things, we are involving Mrs. Ekron and concessions. So we're asking each event, are you going to have concessions or not? And if they say no, we're asking, can our booster clubs run concessions? So we're getting that group, those groups involved as we get signed contracts, and maybe one will do, because like a dance competition's 4 days. So maybe one group does it one day, another group does it another, because they're long days. But big time opportunity to generate revenue for different clubs, different organizations, different sports groups, et cetera. And then Mr. Boardwine, we're getting him involved with the tech team and his wonderful crew that does the video and audio. We're going to be looking at services of videotaping. Would you like that done when you're here? Maybe they do it themselves. That's okay. But we're billing for those hours for those folks, and then we're going to make sure that a portion of that's rolled into the TV studio funds so that they can eventually become operational like Mr. Long and the radio station and self-sufficient. So we're incorporating many areas of our students, our staff, and various community items when we're doing these agreements. So tonight, you'll be asked to approve ID dance competitions rental agreement. You'll be asked to approve Caputo's production, Caputo's Powerhouse production for a bodybuilding competition, which will take place at the middle school. And then a Class A, because we did Class A, Class B, a Class A, which is OMEA. Mr. Dawson is going to head that up, and it's going to be a great musical event for students to take place in. So those are the items we'll be asking for approval tonight, and hopefully we'll have a few more for you next month.
Question. And you may have said it, but I'm not sure if you did. But where are the funds going to be funneled to?
General fund.
General fund?
Mm-hmm. Yep, those will be general fund dollars.
And they're coming with their own liability insurance, correct?
$3 million.
Okay.
That's in the
And we're
contract.
collecting a certificate.
We are
proof of
collecting a
insurance.
certificate. There are steps that they have to take in order to make it happen. It's all in a contract, so we have a contract. I've attached every one of those contracts in for review tonight under my recommendations for you to review and see what the parameters are and how we're billing and charging them. Those are the same contracts that each entity receives to agree or disagree to. Anything further on that?
Nope.
I just want to thank the board for support and trust in making those decisions so we can make this type of stuff happen. So now we just have to carry it out because some of them are big productions. So we'll get it done though. The next item we want to discuss is an agreement that we came with the city in regards to the Senior Center and Parks and Recs coming over to the Streetsboro Annex. They've been there for a few weeks now. It's been very good, a great environment. It's been awesome to see more people in the building and utilizing the space. And they have all kinds of events, and it's always fun to see what's going to happen each day or what events taking place.
Bingo gets real
Bingo
busy.
yesterday. There was, I think, a Medicare presentation with lunch today. Some yoga classes, some weight classes. Lots of fun stuff happening over there, and they've been great partners and neighbors. So under the consent agenda, I believe it's on today. There'll be an MOU and an agreement involving Parks and Recs, the Senior Center, and the school district. The school district is not charging any rent at all for those services. We are just asking for a part-time resource officer. And I know the job has been posted, and I have heard through the grapevine that there's a few applicants already. So hopefully that will be coming soon, and that will be asked for your approval tonight. But just another great opportunity and a wonderful way to show how city and school work together.
Good job. That's awesome.
Thank you. Digital sign update. Mr. Violi, Mr. McCann, I hope you're still awake over there for this. I appreciate that setup, sir. So that's a picture of our digital sign. It's in the back loading dock area currently. So I spoke with John, and he said that the city is working to finalize maps and the legal items, and they're hoping to have this item on the Planning Commission agenda prior to the end of the year.
Merry Christmas.
So that's where we're at. We'll see, because there's a lot of moving parts still, but we will see what happens, and if there is legislation allowing digital signs somewhere in Streetsboro.
So one thing that CJ and I have not had a chance to talk about to address something I think you brought up last time, Brian, was, sorry CJ, was that this, you can see this is a dual color analog screen This is what was available to us during the building project. There are some more, actually the high graphic signs are actually more affordable now. They were not at all affordable when we did the building project, as you remember from the video board that's out at the stadium. So you put that down to a smaller out at the road. And when we did the building chart project, while we would have bid it out 7 years ago, they were not affordable. So we will look into what it'll cost to put a more multicolored graphical type sign or versus the two-color red, black. So that is all that is a two-color sign.
It'll depend on also what the legislation is and
Right.
items like that. We need
Makes
to
me
make
happy.
sure.
You could possibly use that maybe at another building.
That's what I was just going to say, like DEFR sits back in there. I feel like that
That'd
if
be a
we
great
could,
idea.
that would be a really great use of that. if we
Yeah,
can.
so with that, just because I don't want anybody to have the wrong idea and like that we can make that happen super quickly. I
Yeah,
think it's a
right.
great idea, but I was looking to upgrade Deffer's sign over the summer and make it match the other signs in the school district. Because of the signage, it has to be like a permit and we have to go through that whole process and then there's
Okay.
got to be measurements and everything like that. With the digital sign there, so I'm not saying it's not something we can't do. We can most certainly do it, but there's going to be a timeline there. Also, there's not electric that
Yeah.
runs out there, so we would have to pull electric from somewhere. Again, not something that is insurmountable by any stretch. I tell the kids I coach all the time, we can do hard things. We can do hard things, so absolutely an option. We wouldn't let it go to waste as long as it's still functioning.
Come on, CJ, you're a fixer. You get things done.
Yes, this is
We can
true.
have it say slow down between 8 and 8:30.
What was that?
We can have it say slow down. so we
Oh,
don't
for
get run
traffic,
over.
yeah, there you go. Okay. Any questions on the digital sign, Mr. Violi?
Thank you very much for the update, and I appreciate that I don't have to talk about it tonight.
No
And
worries.
thanks, CJ, for staying on top of this
Thank
with
you.
the building department.
I attached under your board reports a food service report, something new that Matt is doing this year, sending a board report to me every month so you guys can see the wonderful things in food service. Just to highlight a few, Principal's Choice, there was a build your own sub. We did Subway here at the high school. I was here serving, Andreas was here serving, Mr. McCann was doing something like serving, I don't really know what it was called. He was throwing me sandwiches sideways or something. But it was a great experience. The kids had a blast. The sandwiches were delicious. It looked like Subway. Like when the first kid came through the line, they were like, "Am I at Subway?" And we were like, "No, we brought Subway here for you, though." So there was that. There was All-American breakfast also at the cafeteria. You could see photos of that there. They did pancakes, eggs, tater tots, bacon, toast.
I'm hungry.
The middle school did Apple Dumpling Day, which was a cool concept. And today, we didn't have a chance to update this, was pizza competition day between Mr. Wepler and Miss Taylor. It did
Pizza
not
banana.
go well for Miss Taylor. I left after the second lunch today serving because I had another meeting. However, she was not winning at that time. And
Ooh, I bet
if you
she's
know
hot.
Julie, she does not
She's
like to
mad.
lose. She gave Brett a beatdown last year in the principal competition over here and wore a chicken costume
Oh my gosh.
during it. So she had like a Hawaiian pizza and Mr. Wepler did pepperoni.
You
and,
never put pineapple on a pizza. That's
pepperoni
why.
and banana peppers. So Mr. Wepler has bragging rights now. So some cool things that are going on. We also did like a KFC chicken bowl day at the Deffer Principal Day. And we were all there making the bowls. They were delicious. I had one. It was excellent. You can see Mr. Pettit in the photo dressed up like Colonel Sanders. Today he was wearing a pizza costume. He was in a full-blown pizza costume, which was kind of cool. And then at the elementary school, they did Talk Like a Pirate Day, which was a super cool event, and it showed that students that food can be fun. And the team there does a great job and has lots of fun with those kinds of events. So just some cool things that are taking place here throughout the first quarter of the school year in food service. And then another item tonight, and my last topic for this evening, is it's that time of year where we have to start taking the bids for school buses, and we will go through the Ohio Schools Council again. We're going to ask for you to approve the first resolution, then there'll be an after-action resolution when we're ready to move on with the purchase. The ask will be for at least 2 buses this year, conventional, and then the potential of another van. I know there's been a lot of talk about vans. It's hard to get vans right now, so there is all the orders so first off, we haven't received our buses that we ordered last year. We ordered 3 buses last year. We still are yet to receive those. So we're hoping they come soon. However, we're going to try to get ahead of it this year again and order around the same time frame and then hope for the best. All of the van orders last year that were placed during this time using Ohio School Council or anyone that is not Ohio School Council were canceled. So none of the school districts that ordered vans received their vans.
Wow.
So
And those were vehicles that were manufactured by the 3 school bus manufacturers, International, Thompson, and Bluebird.
correct. And there's very specific things with school vans that you have to have. And so we're working through that right now. We're finding some other opportunities using the connections that Andreas has through his position as a board member on OAPT. And we're working through some of that, but we're also just going to see what the bid sheet looks like for a type of van that we would prefer. So that ask will happen this evening as well. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Scarsapino. Moving on to board reports. Mrs. Bedford.
So I have an athletic update. Our girls soccer team will play in the sectional tournament on Saturday, 10:15 at 2 at home versus Ashtabula Edgewood. I believe right now the girls are currently playing tonight, Woodridge here at our fields. The boys soccer team will travel to West Branch on Monday, 10:17 at 6 p.m. for their sectional tournament. The team will play tonight. I believe they're at field. Our volleyball team will travel next Tuesday to Canfield, 10:18 to play Perry at 7:30 in their sectional tournament. The girls defeated Springfield on senior night on Tuesday in 3 games. Our girls golf team won the postseason MAC championship tournament and finished the season in 2nd place in the Metro Athletic Conference. Our lady golfers set a new school record for wins in a season at 16. Coach Tim Foster was selected as the Metro Athletic Conference Co-Coach of the Year. And I'm just so proud of these girls. I think it's fantastic what they're accomplishing, and more power to them. I hope they continue. The boys golf team finished 3rd in the MAC and 2nd in sectional tournament to become the first golf team to qualify for districts. So kudos to them. Senior Zach Bales set a new school record in cross country with a time of 16 minutes and 13 seconds at the Legends meet last week. The boys and girls team will compete in the MAC tournament tonight and will compete in districts on Saturday, October 22nd at Lorain County Community College. And our football team is currently 4-4 with 2 games remaining in the regular season. The team will travel to Springfield on Friday night, and then they will host Coventry next week for senior night. So we hope to see you all there. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Bedford. Mrs. Campbell.
Yes, so I have no report for PTA, but Educational Foundation, we have our next meeting on November 2nd. So any staff in the building that would like to turn in grants, I know Mr. Huber had sent out an email with information. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. Mr. Grimm.
Just a few items real quick. Middle school jazz band practice will begin November 3rd with after-school practices, and they will immediately begin preparing for their jazz band concert on December 7th. Wednesday, October 19th, next week, is the Marching Rockets Marching Band in Review concert here at the high school auditorium beginning at 7 p.m. And at the end of October, high school band will begin music auditions for concert band, which begin right after marching season ends at the end of the month. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. My report on Maplewood, I will just say that I will send out the notes from last month's meeting. Last month's meeting, we had the featured program. It was graphic arts, and just wanted to throw this out there. They do take orders there at the graphic arts class. That if you needed like business cards or pamphlets or things like that, they can design them and print them for you at a fee. And I believe they charge basically material fee, not like a labor charge. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
Mr. Viola, do you have a contact for that?
I will get it for you.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report, and that concludes the board reports. So moving on to consent agenda items. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through M.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any comments? I'll
Just thank CJ for that facility lease agreement. He worked really hard on that, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah. And then I just want to mention, always, there's numerous donations on the agenda. Please take a look at it. Yes.
Just wanted to give a shout out to one quick donation from Streetsboro Parks and Rec Department. They donated a ton of musical instruments, really nice stuff.
They were good things.
Mr. Meitinger reached out to me and he's like, hey, CJ, we were going to have all these programs at one point. It didn't work out. We got some sort of grant for a bunch of really nice musical instruments. Do you think the team would want those? We reached out. Overwhelmingly, the answer was yes. So all kinds of good stuff there. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, there's another, there's a trumpet on there from Carol Frischella also.
Yep.
Valued at $800. So, I mean, those instruments are not inexpensive. So thank you to all of them. No further comments. Please call a roll.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations.
Thank you. I have two. Item A, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the following staff collaboration days. That's incorrect. The first one, it's November 28th, as I stated in my report, January 13th, and March 27th.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Item B is recommended the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding for assignment of a school resource officer between the Streetsboro City School District Board of Education and the City of Streetsboro and Ohio's Police Department.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Comments?
This is just this is to approve the formal MOU that CJ talked about during his report. As a result of that, moving the senior city and Parks and Rec to our annex, the city has graciously agreed to, in lieu of rent, assign a part-time resource officer here to campus, and it'll be for the entire school year.
And we'll still have the one,
So it'll be 1.5.
so
A
one
little
and a
more
half.
than 1.5 resource officers here on campus, between all 5 buildings.
Got it. Please call the roll.
Mr. Violi?
Yes,
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
motion carried. Moving on to treasurer's recommendations.
Item A, it is recommended the Board of Education approve transfers for fiscal year 2023.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Item B, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the creation of Fund 200-9205 for the Middle School National Honor Society.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments?
Yeah, this is working with Principal Taylor, basically mimicking what they do in the high school for the kiddos to excel in middle school, and they're already excelling, just to be a part of that national group.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. And moving on to, unless you have anything further.
Nope.
Moving on to Chief Business Officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Violi. I have 4 this evening. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the facility rental agreement between Streetsboro City School District's Board of Education and ID Dance Competition as shown in the attachment.
I'll move.
I'll second.
The first and second. Comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Sorry. Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
My second recommendation for the evening, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the facility rental agreement between the Streetsboro City School District Board of Education and Caputo's North Coast Productions as shown in the attachment.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments?
Just that Mr. Caputo's a local guy. He went to school here. His gym's here. He's super excited to be back in Streetsboro. Awesome person. I'm excited for the event for him.
Thanks for your work. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
My third recommendation, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the facility rental agreement between the Streetsboro City School District Board of Education and the Ohio Music Education Association as shown in the attachment.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
My last recommendation of the evening, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the resolution to allow Ohio Schools Council to advertise and receive bus bids on behalf of the Board of Education, resolution attached.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. No
No
further comments. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Thank you, Board. That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Scarsupino. Moving on to item number 8, new business. Do we have any new business? Hearing none?
We covered it twice.
No, that
Early.
was, it's
Oh,
always,
that's old
it's
business.
always old
Sorry.
business, Tracy.
Sorry.
And item number 9, old business, we already covered.
We already covered that twice. 3 times even.
Yes. So moving on to item number 10, Board President's recommendations. It is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider the discipline of a public employee or official, compensation of a public employee or official, and to consider the employment of a public employee or official with possible action to follow.
I'll move.
Second?
We have first and second. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. We are in executive session at 7:31.